Hello everybody, and welcome again to my channel. I just wanted to take some time to share the spiritual gems that I've gleaned from the 2016 May study edition of the Watchtower. Aren't we just so blessed that Jehovah provides for us so bountifully through his organization? Now, I don't have many points to bring out, but I have two, and I just thought they were interesting. So, again, the May 2016 study edition, starting with the article on page 8, Go and make disciples of people of all the nations. Paragraph 2, they say, many religious groups feel that they are preaching the gospel. It says, however, their efforts are often limited to personal testimonies, church services, or programs broadcast through the media. Almost like JW broadcasting, maybe something else. It says, others point to their charitable activities or their endeavors in the field of medicine and education. You know, kind of like Jesus performing miracles, feeding people, healing them. Apparently that doesn't apply to the Watchtower. How do these claims measure up when compared to what Jesus commanded his disciples to do? Well, let's just take a minute and look at what Christendom has done with regards to the preaching work. So this is an article I found. I forget the name of the magazine. It was like the Weekly or something. I will post a link to this article. But it's talking about the growth of the Protestant church in China. So in China, the article says official estimates number the country's Protestant population at 23 to 40 million people. That's up to twice the number of people that attended the memorial. And that's Protestants just in China. And it says they have more than 500,000 baptized each year. Now, when's the last time that Jehovah's Witnesses had 500,000 people baptized in 1 year? Oh yeah, never. Well, the closest they came was probably 1997, and they had 375,923. At least that was reported in the 1997 or 1998 yearbook. How'd they do in 2015? Well, the 2016 yearbook reports there were 260,273 baptized. So just over half of the number of witnesses were baptized around the entire earth as the number of Protestants that were baptized in China. So how many of those baptisms could possibly have taken place in China? Well, if you have the 2016 yearbook and you go to the back of it, you'll notice that China is not listed among the countries that are reporting because the work is under ban. But they have 30 other lands, which includes some activity that's going on in China. And there they had a total of 2,194. But that's in 30 lands. So the Protestants had more people baptized in China in 1 year than Jehovah's Witnesses have baptized around the earth in 1 year. And they're doing this in a place where the witnesses can't even actively, or openly rather, do their work. So, if we go back to the article, how does that claim measure up when compared with what Jesus commanded his disciples to do? Well, I would say it measures up pretty well. I would say the Watchtower here is being quite dishonest in pretending that they're the only ones preaching, because the fact of the matter is the evidence and the data demonstrates that other Christian denominations are having much better success preaching than Jehovah's Witnesses are, even in places where Jehovah's Witnesses can't get to. So, Watchtower, fail. Sorry, but if you're going to use the standard of how many converts you're getting, Jehovah is blessing other people a lot more than he is blessing you. So in paragraph 4, it talks about that Jesus is not only referring to individual efforts, but to an organized campaign. So do you think having 500,000 people baptized in a year is not an organized campaign? And that's just in China. We're not talking about the whole world. So once again, Watchtower fails there. Other people apparently are better organized. You can be organized to do something, but if your organization is not good and if your leadership is bad, you won't accomplish that much. However, if your organization is good, and let's just pretend that it's actually blessed by God, you might accomplish something, like the Protestants did in China. I'm not saying that God's actually blessing their work, but if that's the standard, God's blessing the Protestants a lot more just in China than he's blessing Jehovah's Witnesses around the earth. So let's move on to paragraph 5. They asked some questions. What should the message of the preaching work be? Or what should be the message of the preaching work? Well, the Bible tells us that the good news is that Christ came and gave his life for us. That's the gospel. And apparently that's what the Protestants are preaching, and that's what people are getting baptized to. What should be the motive for doing this work? Well, probably not to sell publications, but to actually teach what the Bible really teaches. So, once again, the Protestants are able to baptize people, presumably without selling lots of books. I don't really know, but I'm guessing. What method should be used? Methods that are successful? Anybody? Why would you want to waste billions of hours doing something that's not working? So, obviously the Protestants have a better method for preaching in China than the witnesses have around the world. The governing body might want to call up the Protestant church and get some pointers. What should be the scope and duration of this preaching work? Well, apparently it should be around the earth, and once again, the Protestants have the Watchtower beat. So, I just thought I would bring those points out because they were interesting to me. But here, I'm going to move down to page 23, an article, Benefit Fully from Jehovah's Provisions. So, Jehovah's Witnesses and the Watchtower claim that they are not a prophet, that they don't claim to be inspired. But this Watchtower proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that that is not what they are claiming. Because right here in paragraph 3, they directly claim that their spiritual food is provided by Jehovah, which is a direct claim to inspiration and a direct claim to speaking in the name of God. I am going to read this directly from their article. Again, the title is Benefit Fully from Jehovah's Provisions, page 23 of the May 2016 study edition of the Watchtower. Paragraph 3, second sentence. For instance, we appreciate the spiritual food we receive in the form of books, brochures, magazines, and other literature. We know that these provisions from Jehovah help us to stay spiritually alert, well-fed, and healthy in faith. So there you have it. All the literature that comes through the society is a provision from Jehovah. If Jehovah's providing it, then he has to be inspiring it, and it has to be in his name. So henceforth, the society directly claims to be inspired by and speak for Jehovah in word and in deed. And they talk a little bit about all of their spiritual literature and what you might want to read and might not want to read. And paragraph 6 makes an interesting point. It's talking about what if you think that something's not for you when you don't want to read it. It says, starting roughly in the middle of the paragraph at the bottom of the page, or what if we are not part of a primary audience for a certain publication? Do we tend to give such information superficial consideration or even skip it altogether? If so, we could be depriving ourselves of information that would be of great benefit to us. For example, let's say that you're not reading something about Buddhists when you're not a Buddhist and you have no intention of being a Buddhist. If you're a witness, you might think that would help you in field service. But there could be other articles that don't really pertain to you, but the society wants to make sure that you read every single thing they feed. And the reason for that is because no matter what subject they're talking about, their advice is always the same. It's very simple. Basically, it's study Watchtower publications and read the Bible under the guidance of Watchtower publications, attend meetings of Jehovah's Witnesses, preach the message from door to door of Jehovah's Witnesses, pray and meditate on the things that are taught by the literature. And once again in paragraph 6, they drive home the point that their literature is inspired directly by God. At the top of page 24 in the second column, the second sentence says, above all, each one of us should bear in mind that God is the source of our spiritual provisions. So any time that you talk with one of Jehovah's Witnesses and they tell you that they don't claim to be inspired prophets, I want you to ask them to get the May 2016 study edition of their Watchtower and turn to pages 23 and 24 and review paragraphs 3 and 6 with them. And ask them, if something is provided by God, how can it possibly not be inspired by Him? So, since the literature here obviously claims to be inspired by God, this is a claim that literally has always been true for Jehovah's Witnesses. They just pretend that they're not inspired when their prophecies don't come true, which is how they try to avoid being called false prophets. Anyways, that was just an interesting thought I thought I would bring up. Thanks for listening and watching.